Aaron Beelner, and Eric B. And you're listening to the Diary of a Little Man's Podcast. All right, another episode of the Diary of the Little Man's Podcast. Aaron is on location this morning as we speak.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun journey. Aaron's going to take us on his journey to get to where he is right now. But first, let's go get this started. I am Eric B.
And I'm Aaron Beelner.
And this is the Diary of the Little Man's Podcast. Aaron, how are you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm well. You know how we are in San Francisco. As you can tell, if you guys are watching us on video on YouTube, I'm wearing a Klay Thompson Warriors jersey because I'm still living the high of the Warriors winning the NBA championship for all the naysayers out there. So
as you should. I mean, San Francisco has been lit up. The Golden State is on fire the last how many years? That's awesome. Very much so. And congrats, and very excited for you guys. Yeah. We were talking earlier, before the show started, about that fourth game. Like you said, get up by 20, roll into it. And they did that very well.
Yeah.
Very well. So awesome. Yeah, we're live in Iowa.
Iowa. Wow.
I'm originally from Iowa, and as we've discussed, and I'm actually where I am. I'm at my sister's, and we're people who are lovely. When I say I'm from Iowa, they're like, Ohio, and I'm like, no. And then they're like, wait, you're from Idaho? And I'm like, no. I mean, you're talking to how many different regions here? I'm like, I'm from Iowa. Granted, Ohio is the Midwest, or Eastern Midwest, if you will. But Idaho is a real reach. I mean, when people go, oh, you're from Idaho. I'm like, no, Iowa. I never said Idaho.
Yeah.
So where I am now, or where we are, is like East Central Iowa. The University of Iowa is here. Not in exactly the town. I'm in a little bit in north, about 15 minutes north of Iowa City, where the University of Iowa is. That's where I am now. And so we left. We've been here for a week, and we were going to be heading out next Wednesday. But anyway, we left on Friday a week ago from yesterday, with the intention of getting, how you have these ideas of scheduling. And then, I probably could have changed a few things and done it a little differently and would have eliminated one issue. But I really wanted to be on the road by 8:15 Eastern time,
of course,
which is 7:15 Central time, 5:15 for you West Coasters in the morning. Anyway, and it's 12 hours if you don't stop for gasoline, which is impossible, or stop for fuel or anything else, which really it's about 13 hours. Okay. 13 hours now, in the car.
Where are you starting from? You're starting from Atlanta.
North of Atlanta. Okay. North of Atlanta.
And that's going north. Is that going north, or is that going west?
I'm going from Atlanta. I'm going north and northwest.
Okay.
I'm going north and northwest of Atlanta for 809 miles.
Wow. Okay.
And so, and everybody was like, are you going to stop and break it up in two? I'm like, no, I don't plan on.
Yeah.
And so with that don't plan on stopping idea, my hope was, like I said, to get on the road, nothing ridiculous, but get on the road by, let's say, 8:15 Eastern time, which then, even though with stops and everything, it's about 13 total hours, you get an hour, because we go back, Central time's back an hour.
Yeah.
So if I leave at 8:15, which really is, by the time it's all said and done, going to be 9:15 p.m. Eastern time, it's really going to be 8:15 Central time. That's not the end of the world.
Nope.
Some people go, oh my God, how could you spend that much time in a car? But I've done it before. I'm used to that kind of stuff. The longest I've ever done driving myself was 18 straight hours. And that was long. I was tired. I was exhausted. But anyway, so back to the beginning, get to the car rental place. I like to rent a car to drive because I love, one, it's somebody else's vehicle. Two, if anything happens to the vehicle, I just call them and say, hey, I need another car, or a tire went out, whatever. But the kicker was my pedals did not work on any of the cars. I think we tried 6 different vehicles.
Now, let me ask you this. For the ones who don't know, When you order a car, do you do it online or do you have to go there in person and say?
I do it. Usually I do it through like can we say a brand or say a medium? I use Orbitz.
Okay.
I use Orbitz or like an Expedia sometimes, but I usually use Orbitz and try to find the best deal and then go. And it's worked every time except for this one.
Wow.
And so we had the newer cars now, and nothing wrong with new cars, but the newer cars, the gas pedal is not rectangular like it used to be. And it's coming to like a teardrop or a tapered, I shouldn't say, like a reverse teardrop, like a tapered end. Well, when you're trying to pull a bracket with two wing nuts on that, it slides right off. And I'm like, I can't drive a vehicle with the pedals falling off.
It's dangerous.
I mean, it'd be one thing for the brake fall off is heinous.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't, but a gas pedal, I'm not going to get very far if that's falling off. So we went through 6 different vehicles. I'll say this. The representative, her name was Jasmine. I'm going to make sure that, not that anybody's going to know who Jasmine is, but she deserves accolades. She was so copacetic and empathetic and kept bringing in another vehicle and another vehicle, another vehicle. And they finally had a vehicle that wasn't completely cleaned.
Yeah.
And they're like, what did you think of this? I said, it works. They're like, okay, but we're going to clean it up while you're sitting there. So they cleaned, she did interior cleaning. It didn't have, they're supposed to be fully filled for gas. Yeah. She's like, when you bring it back, it can be right where it is. So don't have to fill it up. We apologize. I'm like, nope, because you're tending to my needs. And I'm elated. It's frustrating, but that's not anything they can control. They can't control how the vehicle's designed.
Yeah.
So they were extremely empathetic and extremely hospitable. Nice. So I'm going to give a big shout out to Hertz. They deserve that. And they were very sweet. So we finally get in the car. Now we're about an hour and 20 behind the schedule I want to be on, which life is life anymore nowadays. Yeah. People go, oh my God, we got to get going. What's the point of rushing to anything anymore?
That's me. That's me. I'm not kidding. That's me. But I'll share my driving story when you're done. Go ahead.
Okay. So we get on the road and it's construction city once we get past Nashville.
Man.
Now I'm going my path just to share for fun, play a little geography bee here. Leaving Atlanta, you go on 75 up through Chattanooga, which for some reason, Chattanooga is not a big town in Tennessee.
Wow.
It is always so congested.
Wow.
The traffic is horrendous at any hour. And it seems like they're always doing construction. I don't know if that town ever doesn't have construction on their roads. So you go up through Tennessee to Nashville. Go through Clarksville like the monkeys talk about on that last train.
Yep.
And you get up to Kentucky. Tennessee's pretty. Kentucky's pretty. There's a little town right on the northwest corner of Kentucky where you hit the southern tip of Illinois.
Okay.
And you're on the very eastern border of Missouri. It's called Paducah. It's crazy that we drive through that. Whenever I drive, we go through it every time. That's where my grandfather was born.
Wow.
Paducah, Kentucky.
Paducah. Wow.
Now I'm going to give Paducah a shout out for one thing. They've got a lot of things, but one thing that stands out to me is there's a barbecue joint in Kentucky Paducah called Starnes.
Man.
Eric.
Yeah. You don't have to say it. Southern barbecue to me is the best barbecue. And just if you're watching on YouTube, just looking at Aaron's face, he's drooling because he has his hands behind his mouth, covering his mouth. He's drooling.
I'm telling you, you want to have a cigarette after that.
Oh my God. Yeah. That's what it is.
Starnes barbecue. We rolled. We did not stop this time because I was behind as it was. Go through there, southern tip of Illinois, take that. There's a road called 57. Take that all the way up to what's called 64. And then you go through St. Louis. You get to see the arch. You get to cross the Mississippi. But you get to go through East St. Louis, which is a unique part of town.
Yes.
Did you ever see the movie Vacation?
Yeah.
And they get across the river. They're leaving Chicago, and they get into a little rough part of town.
Yeah.
That's East St. Louis that they're supposedly documenting.
So they weren't lying. They weren't lying.
Yeah, East St. Louis can be tough in parts.
Yeah.
It can be tough. I've never been to East St. Louis at the wrong hour, if you know what I mean. So get across the river, get to see the beautiful arch, get to see Busch Stadium.
Nice.
That's the other thing we can address. We can do. So go back really quickly. Nashville, got to see Titan Stadium because you and I both love sports.
Yeah.
Got to see the Titan Stadium. You always go by there, and we call it the Batman building, but it's the AT&T corporate building in Nashville, but it's got two antennas coming up that look like Batman's ears. Nice. So we call it the Batman building. Went by that, got through. Once you pass Paducah, there's a little town called Metropolis.
Wow.
And you know what the theme is?
Yeah.
There's all these different Superman things, and you can stand in the cutout with your face in it and Superman outfit.
Wow.
And they've got a little oh God, wasn't he a reporter? Wasn't he a reporter? Clark Kent was a reporter.
Yeah.
So
I forget the name.
They've got the little like pretend paper that he worked for.
Wow.
It's really fun. And I say all of that only because I'm driving. It was just my one daughter and I coming up this time. And so there's just two of us in the vehicle. Of course, she's on her device. Yeah. Nonstop. And then doing this number out cold, for hours at end. Which I have to keep alert of, when you're just two people in the car and one's out cold, I'm playing music, I'm doing whatever, the old audiobooks, all of that stuff. Stephen King. I love listening to Stephen King. Anyway, get up to Iowa and it was 9:57 p.m. Central Standard Time. Wow. Yeah. So it was a long day. I was cooked. And this is the last part, I'll save it, and then we'll venture into something else I want to tell you about trips. We're safe. We're alive. That's what matters. Saw a horrific car accident. I think it was just one vehicle. It was the opposite direction, southbound lanes. We're going north. A little gray car gone into the ditch, was aimed in the wrong direction, laying up against a tree, indentation in the passenger side door, and they were pulling people out of that vehicle on stretchers. I don't know if anything, I'm not going to guess. Yeah. I just hope that the universe gave them the chance to survive. Yeah. So that was that's when you get, when you're getting antsy and ready to get out of the car, when you see stuff like that, you just go, you know what? Done. I'm just, as long as we're safe. So we got here and, we're hanging and we're doing our thing, and it's hot here too. Yeah. It's hot in the Midwest. It's hot everywhere. We get here and they're like, oh yeah, the next day is going to be 97 degrees. Ooh. I'm like, what? Yeah. In Iowa? I'm like, yeah, it's unbearable. I'm like, yeah, it's not. It feels like Georgia. It feels like we haven't left. So no, I wanted to share this. One of the trips, and this is a little people thing. One of the trips we took, I think it was the last one. We were going back to Atlanta, and I was pulled over by the police. And he's like, it was early in the morning, so we had just left here to go back to Atlanta, and the officer's like, "Have you been drinking?" And I went, "What?" And he goes, "Well, you went over the fault line once." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Did I? I didn't realize that." I said, "I just got started." I had both of my daughters in the back seat. He's checking them out. As a matter of fact, my oldest daughter, she was irked because when he let us go, when we got back on the road, she's like, "Dad, he was looking at us. He was staring at us. He was checking out the little people." I'm like, "Okay, all right." And so, but he was like kind of doing an interrogation to make sure I was, able to operate this vehicle and make sure I wasn't doing anything wild. And he was like, "You realize it's like, granted, we're just in Missouri now, okay?" Okay. And he's like, "Do you know it's raining in Nashville?" And I'm like, "No, because I'm here. I'm not there." Yeah. So, and it came off a little smart assy, and I wasn't, I was just like, "How the hell would I know that?" Yeah, you're not there. So, it's raining, and I'm like, "Okay," and but he let us go. But it was one of those great moments of. He was definitely intrigued with the little people. Yeah. He wasn't like outright rude. He was just kind of, you could see his eyes piecing it together, and he kept looking at the two in the back and then wondering if I was plastered, I guess, driving. So anyway, that was a wild.
Is that a thing? Does he think like every little people is drunk? Is that?
I don't know if it was just, I don't know. You know, it was early in the morning. It was like, I think we left on like a Sunday morning. So, you know, I don't know if he thought, here's somebody that just left the bar or whatever, or didn't get out, you know.
Had too much wine at church. Is that what it was?
Yeah, maybe that is. I went and had a little extra sacrament. I don't know what his thing. He was very intrigued though. I think that when I'm sitting in a car, and I sit as tall, you know, as far as the type of dwarfism I have, I sit upright, you know, from shoulder. I mean, I probably, if you and I are sitting in chairs together, we could be looking at each other right now. As soon as I get off that chair, of course, then you're going to notice my limbs are shorter. So in a car, I'm doing, you know, it's not super noticeable, but I've got shorter arms and I've got quite a cranium. So I think he saw me go by and went, is this a kid?
I got to pull this guy over.
Yeah. Who the hell's driving that car? And so I was like, you know, as soon as I saw the lights going, I'm like, oh God, what did I do? I didn't think I was speeding, and I knew I wasn't drinking. And so I was just like, oh God, what could it be? And you know how you run through your head, and I was like, nope, seatbelts on. Kids are in seatbelts in the back. They're not jumping around, you know, with fireworks or anything. And then got over, and he's like, when he opened it with, you know, you went over the fault line.
Wow.
And I had to take a second. I was like, what the hell does he mean by the fault line?
Is that the center divide?
Yeah, the divided line in the center. He was like, yeah, you went over the fault line. And there was no other cars around.
Wow.
I mean, don't get me wrong. It doesn't mean I was swerving. Well, you shouldn't be swerving back and forth. But I may have leaned a little heavy on the left. As opposed to, and I wasn't doing this. And so, he was not happy with that. The other thing is, and this has happened to me before, in the state of Georgia, you do not have to have a license plate on the front of the car.
Wow. Okay.
I don't know how many other states have that. So when you hit states where they have plates on the front and back, it comes off as like you've got an unmarked car. You've got a car that's not registered if it doesn't have a plate on the front. So I've had police be going in the opposite direction, turn around, and then when they saw the plate on the back, went about their way.
Wow.
But they didn't see a plate on the front, so they assumed something's wrong.
They're like, No, that's. I mean, those little things. I mean, you know, we here in California, we always get that stereotype pullovers. Was what they used to say, and it irks me a little bit. It's like, why did they pull you over? Was it because he saw a little person and he couldn't believe it was a little person? And I bet you from this day, he's still talking about, you know, when I pulled over the family of little people, you know, it's just.
Of course.
If you weren't doing anything bad, then there's no reason why he should have pulled you over. But
right. And I'm all about caution and being, you know, I benefit of the doubt. You know, if the police, you hear about, especially now, these horrific stories of people getting pulled over and things going severely wrong.
Yeah.
And honestly, innocent people. I mean, they put their hands up and then something gets misread, or they try to take a seatbelt off or whatever. And we're going to assume they're going for a gun or something. If somebody gets hurt for no reason. I mean, that's horrific. That's absolutely horrific. So I'm okay. You know what? If the default has to be that the police officer is just intrigued and whatever, so be it. Now, if they're going to say something rude, then I'm definitely going to hold somebody accountable.
Of course.
If we're being harassed, and nobody should be harassed based on color, based on whatever. But if I'm being harassed by an officer of the law who's supposed to serve and protect, you know, and Eric, I'm just lightly touching the surface of this issue. Like I just said, I can't imagine being pulled over by an officer of the law and wondering whether or not I'm going to leave that situation alive.
Yeah, of course. I think about that all the time. I mean, that's why, you know, the two boys that I have that are getting ready to drive, I always tell them, don't put yourself in the situation where you have to get pulled over. If the speed limit is 55, you got that, unwritten rule that you can go 60, maybe even 65. I said, but don't go any faster than everybody else around you. Like, don't give them a reason. And if they do pull you over for any reason, just listen to everything they're saying. Don't argue. Ask them the question. That's your right. Well, why did you pull me over? He's going to give you an answer. You were going 65 in a 55-mile-an-hour zone. And don't give him any more bullshit after that. Just listen to him. I
totally agree.
Worst thing you'll get is you'll get a speeding ticket. You'll get yelled at by me when you get home. And that's it. So don't worry about it. So, yeah. Listen to them. Yeah.
Give them, the benefit of the doubt so that if anything does happen, you did nothing to, that's horrible to think like that.
Yeah.
But we have to.
You have to. We trust the police officers, but there's some of them out there where any little thing can trigger them. Any little thing can trigger them. And, don't give them that opportunity to be triggered. So.
And it's, it's unbelievable that we have to be in that mind frame. 30 years ago, you didn't think like that, I guess, or, we each are individual people. And, you're as a man of Filipino descent, as a man who has achondroplasia, as, other people of females, different shapes and sizes, colors, whatever, you really hope that never comes into play.
Yeah.
The sad truth is it unfortunately comes into play.
It does. Yeah.
And so, but, so I was thinking about, when you have time on the road and you're like, you put the vehicle in cruise and you're like, all right, and I don't know how you do traveling. I don't know how much traveling you've done in a vehicle. I've traveled a bunch in a vehicle back and forth from the Midwest, from Georgia, here and there around the US. I've done different treks, but I get in mind frames where I'm like, I see, all right, we got 250 miles till our next exit, or we got whatever. Mm-hmm. And then you start, thinking.
Yeah.
And this last trip got me thinking about, like, when we were kids, what trips we took. And my family, my father, I've explained in the past, was a farmer. And so, and even with that, we didn't take a truckload of, like, summer trips. We didn't leave home that often, especially with my dad. Like, with his obligations, whatever, we may go with my mom.
Yeah.
But it was usually like to visit relatives. Like, we didn't go to do the Wally World trip, if you will, or anything.
Yeah.
And one trip we did do with all of us was to from the Midwest to Colorado. My father's second brother in line. So my father is the oldest, and then the third son. We went out to their home in Colorado, and we went through South Dakota. You've heard of the Mount Rushmore, and the Badlands. We went through all of that.
Nice.
And as a kid, and we had a van. So that was the other thing, is like, this family is in a van rolling through, the Midwest and out to the west, mountain range.
Now I got to ask, was it a box type van, or was it the newer minivans?
No. It was a box top van.
Okay.
It was like the Mystery Machine from Scooby-Doo. It had, and then in its time, my father, for some reason, got a van. And I think it was in 1988 he purchased this van. And it was like, how many different, on the outside, if I remember correctly, it was how many different tones of, like, a maroon.
Of course, yeah.
And like the salmon color. And then, like, you had all these different colors on the outside.
Yeah.
And then inside, in its day and age, it was considered pretty decent, technology-wise. It had a television set in it. And it had, so there were the two front seats. Then there were two bucket seats right behind it. Then a bench seat behind that laid out to like a bed.
Yeah.
So as kids, we thought that was a riot because we could just crash back there. And we didn't have phones or anything, but we had a video game or something, or we had a book or whatever. But we just thought as kids. So in 88, when we took that trip, I would have been 14.
Okay.
So I was 14. My sister was 8. And my brother was 4. So we thought that was pretty cool. The three of us back there having our own village, if you will. And we drove through like I said, South Dakota, and I think through like parts of Nebraska, and then got to Colorado. And those were, as kids, I mean, I flew a few times as a child.
Yeah.
And flying is cool when you're a kid too, when you're first time experience. But as a kid traveling in a vehicle like that, it was kind of this road trip from nowhere. You know, I mean, it was fun. You know, it was like vacation. It was like getting in the Wagon Queen family truckster and making that part of that whole journey was just being in the vehicle.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so, and as a little person, and here's where it comes into play. I could stand up in that van. I probably could still, the van's not around anymore. I think my father traded it years ago. Anyway, I could stand in the van and not bump my head. So that was a huge thing for me. Yeah. I think my sister and my brother, well, not at 4, but my sister, so she was 8 at the time. I think she was as tall as I was, if not a little taller, just a hair taller than me. And me being 14, which is something we can address down the road too, about my siblings being taller than me and different things that happen in life. But anyway, I just thought that was so cool to be able to stand in that van as it was rolling down the highway and just living in that little world until we finally got released.
I've always wanted a van like that. And I had a lot of friends and family who had that exact same style that you just mentioned. And I would always sit in the back bucket seat just because it could rotate. And I would just turn it around and look at the people behind me, or we would do something. And honestly, I tried looking for a van like that not that long ago. And
really?
I did. I was like, oh, I want this. And, you know, it's that midlife crisis thing that I'm having.
Oh, I know.
You want to get that van. You want to cruise. You want to go driving. I'm glad I didn't with the gas prices the way it is. I'm glad I didn't.
Oh, my God.
That's what I was going to ask you. On your trip here, how is the gas prices from each state?
Well, that's the thing is, so we have, what we're driving is a Toyota. It's below the 4Runner. It's just a model size below the 4Runner.
Is it the RAV4?
I'm sorry, the RAV4. It's so it's the, what do they call it? The CRH or something or whatever. It's the model right below the RAV4.
Okay. It's
a 4-seater, a little smaller than the RAV4. Actually, thank God, because gas prices are ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
You guys have gas prices out there that are like a dinner at a restaurant.
Yeah, it's like $7 almost for us here.
Yeah, per gallon.
Yeah.
I was getting in the 524. Like 524 was pretty much the average. And what's people have a hard time understanding is that, or not hard, but it's in the Midwest, gas prices are more than on the East Coast because of our ports.
Yeah.
So that we're able to haul in, you know, from the Atlantic or whatever without having to travel how far into the Midwest. So prices are higher here on average. We started at 4 something a gallon. We hit 5.29, I think was the high at one. No, I'm sorry. 5.29 was the highest at one point.
Okay.
But this vehicle doesn't take a truckload of gasoline. Thank God. I think my biggest, and that's the other thing. So the vehicle only had like 100 miles left of gas in it because it wasn't full.
Yeah.
I filled 2 more times after that and was able to get here.
Nice.
So that is in bed, but it was like $50-some a pop for a small tank. I think that whole tank holds like 11 gallons.
Yeah.
But so I was happy that, and it had in that particular model, it's got the economy button or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm like, let's use, I mean, come on. I mean, I don't want to have to give blood to get gasoline.
Oh, God.
But
that's how we are here in the West Coast, especially in San Francisco. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
You guys are up to what, 6, 7?
The most I use Chevron. I use Chevron a lot. And Chevron, I always have to go to the middle or the most expensive, right? You know, I drive a high performance car, and I'm looking. The last time we looked, me and my son was driving down, and he was like, $6.99. I was like, wow. And I bought this car not thinking the gas prices was ever going to go up, because when I bought the car, we were looking at what you're paying right now, like $5 or like $5.50, $5.60, maybe even $5.24, and then now it's like in the $6 range. It hasn't gone lower than $5, but it's, you know, closely peaking to $7. So yeah, that's terrible.
It's insane. Yeah. And I really, I mean, not to prognosticate, I just, in the future, an electric vehicle is not um, out of the question by any means. I want to,
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, I was talking to a person, I was in a hotel a few weeks back, and this man had, and I think it's the Rivian or whatever, it's a
Okay.
truck. And I said, what is that like to,
Yeah.
charge? And he goes, it's $6 for 30 minutes. And that $6 charge will get me 180 miles. Well, that's compared to what we're paying for gasoline right now. I mean, what it takes, the most efficient cars, gasoline wise, even that would be, 180 miles. You're looking at probably 5 gallons at least, probably close 6 gallons. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, 6 gallons at $7.
Yeah.
$42 to go 180 miles or 6.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's funny you mentioned that. There's this conspiracy theory going around in California. And the governor of California, his name is Gavin Newsom, who used to be the mayor of San Francisco. He vowed that in 10 years, California is going to go green and they're going to get rid of the high emission vehicles. So meaning he wants all electric vehicles in California. Now we look around all the other states outside of California, gas prices are $5, but for some reason California is only $6. So there's this theory going around that the governor is purposely keeping the gas prices up because since the gas prices went up, the market for buying an electric vehicle went up. Everybody's getting rid of their gas cars and they're buying electric vehicles. Now, I said I wouldn't mind an electric vehicle, but I want them to pay the down payment for my electric vehicle. If they want me to go green, they better pay for that down payment for me to go green because electric vehicles aren't expensive. I mean, they're not cheap. I mean, they're expensive.
No, they're not.
They're expensive.
I think that's something that we should look at seriously, as far as if we're going to do this, we have to make it accessible.
Yeah.
You can't sit there and go, hey, we all have to go to electricity, but the vehicle that you're trying to buy is 75,000 plus.
Yeah.
And not everybody can afford that for a basic vehicle.
Yeah.
So that's a little, presumptuous. And we have to, I think electric is a must.
It's a must.
I think we're crazy. I know why we're still using fossil fuels. We don't need to get into politics. Money talks.
Of course.
Money talks. Of course.
That's all it is. Yeah.
Money talks. And so that being said, when you're sitting there going, okay, here's the product you have to use.
Yeah.
But it's so far out of reach for most homes right now, financially.
Yeah.
That's outrageous. There's got to be some type of program.
I looked at it, before I bought the vehicle I have now, I actually looked at a couple of Teslas and a couple of Chevy electric vehicles that I was thinking about purchasing. I live in an apartment in San Francisco where the charging port is not accessible for me. I went through everything. I talked to the management. Hey, what if I shimmy an electric cord down to the garage and then use that? I thought of everything. And the only thing I can think of was I have to take my car someplace outside of where I live to charge it. And then I don't trust that area. I'm not sure if it's going to get broken into. So I was like, okay, so in order for me to get this vehicle, I got to make sure that I have the accessibility to charge it. And right now I don't. Again, I live in an apartment, and if I did, it would be more of a pain in the neck than it would be a hassle. So
I have questions for you about that. When you leave where you live, your apartment, you go out, how, I'm going to sound like an idiot. I'm not intending to sound like an idiot.
Yeah, no worries.
The charging stations, how many do you see? Are they on every corner? Are they... How accessible?
In my area right now, there's 2. So there's one literally up the street from me, but that one is like $10 every whatever, right? And then there's a big one at Safeway, which is, again, not that far from me. But the Safeway only has 3. And there's people that live in that, and because there's like a high rise where the Safeway is. So the people that live there, they're like college students, or they work in the medical field, and they have all electric vehicles. So if there's 3 ports, they're taking all 3 ports. So it's just one of those things where, my friend who actually bought one, he lived near Costco, which is downtown from where I'm at. And he said, I would just go to Costco. I would charge the car there. And then it's good for the next, he would say like 20 something hours.
Right.
And I'm like, well, I'm not, there's nothing close to me. And he said Costco was free charging. So I don't know. That was before the gas prices went up. I'm pretty sure a lot of charging stations right now are charging.
Oh, yeah. Of course. I mean, because that's the other thing. Okay. So I'll make a connection to the farm.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I know some of the rhyme and reason to this, but when fuel prices are high, grain prices are high.
Yeah.
And so that whole, as a farmer, you're paying, you have your operation expenses, and one of those is fuel for all the pieces of machinery,
of course,
in order to do what you do. Is the day hopefully around the corner where all of that's charging stations and can do what farming requires in power and demand, it would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Yet that's not there yet. And so when you're looking at fuel prices and people are going, oh my God, the fuel prices, and they're nuts. They're insane. And grain prices go through the roof. And so then people who are using soybean and purchasing corn, it's for the farmer, it's wonderful, because you like to see great prices for the product you're making. But you're also on the other end of that consuming anybody who's purchasing soybean. I saw an article that said, hey, tofu lovers, soybeans are going to dip a little bit in the fall as far as price. So yay. And that's wonderful, of course, for the tofu lovers and, supply and demand. But it's interesting how that whole economic model works. And to me, and again, not trying to incite anything with anyone, but my attitude is the reason we are not further along in the electric world is because of money. It's whether it be cost to purchase the electric products or how much fossil fuels make for certain people and certain companies and certain demands. So, I remember, and again, no, not to get political, I remember, I think it was George W. Bush, so Jr., who said, we're addicted to oil. And I'm like, oh, we're not addicted to oil. We're expected to buy oil. We're filling the pockets of somebody who used to be the chairman for Halliburton. I mean, we're not addicted to oil. We're expected to buy oil because people want their checks. So it's an interesting juxtaposition, and it's crazy. You don't think and as a kid, when you get in the car to go on the summer vacation, that kind of stuff's not on your plate.
You don't.
And as you get older, when you're an adult doing the same thing and going on that trek across the Midwest, and you're going, wow, I just bought 10 gallons of gas for $55. So
you're like, whoa.
What is going on?
I told my son, who he's 18, he's getting ready to drive, and I said, you gotta, first of all, you gotta look for a job. I go, because if you don't have a job, then you don't have gas. And I said, when we were younger and we were driving, we would have $20 because we didn't have a job. Mom and dad would give you $20. That should let you last for the week. I said I would put $5 in gas, because back then gas was like $1 or something, right?
I know.
I put $5 of gas, and I would still be skimpy with the last $15 that I have, just in case I needed more gas. And I said, you can't just, like nowadays, you guys, I'm going to buy food, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. No, but first you got to think of, do you have enough money for gas? That's all it is.
And this will tell you how small town I was. And I'm pretty sure I'm almost 100% on accuracy. I had a little Dodge Ram 50.
Yeah. Okay.
And I would fill that with gas. It would last over 2 weeks. I didn't go a lot of places, and especially in the summer. I went and worked. In the morning, I'd go to the golf course, park the vehicle there till, be there by on a machine by 6:30, get off usually around 4:30, and then I go home and go to bed. Go rest, because we just put in a 10-hour day in the sun on a golf course. So I didn't really travel a lot with a vehicle. It was just basically to get to and from work. And $20 would have lasted me a long time. Then, $20 now is not even 4 gallons of gas here.
Right. So. I don't even want to. We take a lot of trips down to Southern California. We drive down to LA, and at the time, the last time we drove there, I had a minivan, and it was a Toyota Sienna minivan. I only got it for the convenience for my kids so they can have their own row when we're driving down there. And, we had what I love about these new vehicles is that it tells you how many miles before you're empty. Like
I know, thank God.
Yeah, there's an actual digital counter.
I love that.
So with the technology that we have, I always put my maps, my Google Maps on where the first gas station I want to drive to is. So it's like, 330 miles. Like, okay, 330. I have 250. No, I'm sorry. 250 miles. I have gas that'll last me 330 miles. I said, okay, so I won't run out of gas before I hit that gas station. I love that. And when I get to that gas station,
technology is awesome that way.
$60 to fill up my tank back then. This was literally 2020 that I'm talking about. That's the last time we drove down to LA. 60 gallons. I was a 6-cylinder car. Now we're thinking about driving down to LA at the end of July. And again, I have a little high-end car, but it's a 4-cylinder instead of a 6-cylinder. And the last time I filled that up, I only did $25 just because of the gas prices, because I don't drive enough to where I want to fill up the tank. I was looking at maybe like 3 or 4 gallons, $25. And I said, okay, this is enough for me to drive around San Francisco just because I don't want my gas tank to be empty.
And see, that's the other end of that too. San Francisco is not flatland by any means.
I don't know.
It's up and down hills. And so you're churning and burning gasoline even faster. Yeah, it's insane. I have a question for you. What is the distance? Because I can physically see it, on a map, San Francisco to Los Angeles. How far is that?
You're looking at about a 6-hour drive.
Okay.
And the bad part about that drive, and I'm sure you can relate with the travel you just did, is the first 4 hours of that, you're driving down Highway 5.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 2-lane road, and there's nothing around you. You got farms, you got nothing around you. And you have the trucks are supposed to be on the slow side of the lanes, and then we're passing everybody. But then you'll have that one car that wants to drive 55.
What is that?
On the fast lane. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing?
It drives me nuts.
We call it a parade. It was like, okay, there's a parade.
And they go exactly the same speed as a vehicle to the right of them.
Yeah.
So they block both lanes for 15, 20 minutes or whatever. And you're like,
it's funny.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have road rage, but
no. I totally agree with you.
Drives me nuts.
When I drive down to LA, and this is me when I drive down to LA, I always look for a car that I could either follow or a car that's following me. And we're both sticking. And I call him my wingman, like the whole Top Gun thing, right? It's like, I'm not going to leave my wingman. We can go down for 4 hours, me and this vehicle, and we're following each other left and right. And there was one road drive we were doing. We were coming back from LA, and it was so cool because he was in front of me and he pulled over to the side because he wanted me to pass him up. So I passed him up. He came behind me and started following me. And I'm thinking, okay, he just wanted to take a break from being the front of the line.
Yeah.
So then
he wanted to be the follower in the convoy.
Yeah. So I did that for about an hour and a half. Then I did the same thing. Then he gets in front of me and I'm like, okay, I'll let you do it. No, it was cool. I love when vehicles understand or drivers understand what you're supposed to be doing on roads like this. But you always have that one driver and
that's sitting over there and just in la la land.
Yeah.
And they're it's unicorns and rainbows or whatever going on up here. And you're like, and here's the kicker. I'm not a speed demon. Everybody will tell you who drives with me. My significant other will tell you he's like a little old man driving, because I'm not about gun it. I'm not about hit the brakes hard. I'm all about, especially now, nice and easy brake, nice and easy gas, save the gas,
save the gas,
save the brake pads, save the tires, everything. Okay, make it last as long as you can. And so that being said, not a speed demon, but when you're going slower than the vehicles on the right, and people are passing you on the right, and I don't know, the other concept is right of way. Right of way. at a four-way stop, that drives me batty.
Yeah.
How people don't understand what that means, right of way. It literally means right, like to the right.
To the right.
If somebody to the right has been there before you, they go next.
Yeah. 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 You and I are old school. And when we talk about the driver's education back then, they got rid of that. For some reason, the drivers, especially in San Francisco, I don't know how it is in your town, but in San Francisco, no one knows how to drive. I mean, there's a California stop, and it's called California stop for a reason, because
right.
Californians does this stop that you go there, you don't even look who's left and right, and you just keep going. Yeah. So
yeah, we have that in Atlanta. We don't have a name for it. I think it's just called insanity.
Yeah.
But it's like, and not to jinx it, but honestly, Eric, it's no wonder there aren't more accidents in any given day.
Yeah. Because you know what?
It just seems like sometimes it seems like people just go, hey, I don't give a rip. I'll be on this, drive around. Hey, I hit 3 people.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think a lot of it is we're defensive drivers now. I mean, we were taught to always be defensive, always think that the other car is not a good driver. And that's how I was taught. So always
be cautionary at every turn.
So I think that's what a lot of people is doing right now. And the bad thing about San Francisco is a lot of people who work in San Francisco don't live in San Francisco. So they don't understand the concept of driving in a big city. I'm talking about they live, 2 hours away and they have to come in here and drive. Now there's all these traffics, and then they have pedestrians crossing the street left and right. Just being a pedestrian, just me walking to work. I walk to work almost every day. And walking to work is almost as dangerous as driving to work.
Yeah, you're going to get hit.
Because no one...
You might get hit.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple people that I know that got hit because the car wasn't looking when they were making a turn or going, crossing the street.
Now, have you ever driven a manual transmission?
Not in yeah, I did when I was in high school, but living in San Francisco, no, that's not.
That's the other thing.
Yeah.
If you ask the average 18-year-old, can you operate a manual transmission?
Yeah.
They may not be able to do it. I actually learned manual transmission, not to sound too backwoodsy, but I learned manual transmission in farm equipment.
Yeah.
And like stuff that we were using on the golf course.
Yeah.
So there was nothing automatic about any of that.
Yeah.
And you learned how to use a clutch in that. So fathom that.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about vehicles now that are so autonomous.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, people are going, well, you can't just let go of the wheel, but we're going to get to that point.
We are.
We're going to get to that point where the vehicle is so autonomous that I don't even need to worry about my pedal extensions. It'll just do everything for me.
We have ride shares here in San Francisco, and I kid you not, you can Google this, that they're autonomous vehicles. And they only operate at night when there's less vehicles on the road. But one night, it's a company called Cruise. I was walking out to get something, to go meet a friend. I was standing at the corner because he said he's going to meet me at the corner. I saw this vehicle and I looked and I'm like, there's nobody. I literally walked up to the car and I did one of these to the windows because I didn't see anybody in there. I saw 2 people in the back and then they rolled down the window. I was like, are you guys driving? He's like, no, we're testing out this autonomous vehicle. I was like, wow.
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy.
And here's
it's scary and crazy.
Scary and crazy and scary because human beings, especially in this country, are not comfortable with being out of control.
Oh God, I don't, you know what I mean? I don't do cruise control for more than 5 minutes. I only do cruise control to adjust my legs.
Live on cruise control. I love it.
The only reason why is like you said, I am not comfortable with the car taking control of, me. I only, like I said, I use it for 5 minutes, maybe just to stretch my driving
totally
leg.
Understand.
Other than that, I turn it off.
But the day's going to come, like you said, with the autonomous vehicle, and people are going, oh God, there'll be car accidents. No, actually, we're taking with autonomous vehicles. Yes, it's not foolproof yet.
Yeah.
Yes, there's still going to be problems because science isn't, or not science, but computer systems, GPS, they're not always flawless, but they're actually better than human error.
Yeah.
And if we can get to an autonomous system where everything's on the same, we'll actually have fewer car accidents and less death and less people going, I was going 95 staring at this thing and crashed into somebody, I think it's alarming for people to let go of control.
Yeah. There's a driver here in San Francisco who had a Tesla, probably still has a Tesla, and he was caught multiple times in the backseat of his Tesla because he paid for the upgrade where it was a self-driving Tesla. And they found him a few times on the freeway, and they found him a few times on, the city streets of San Francisco. And people are videotaping this guy. I would think this guy would at least tint his windows to like, hey, if you're going to spend the extra cash on getting that autonomous portion of Tesla, tint your window so no one can see you back there.
See, but I was going to ask you about that as soon as you said that. Can you have, in the state of Georgia, you can only have such a layer of tint?
Yeah.
So you can still see somebody.
Yeah.
You cannot have
we
mirrors.
have that here too, but that's one here in San Francisco. They're not going to pull you over for that.
Okay.
If you don't do anything stupid, if you don't like run a red light, then yeah, they're going to catch you for running the red light. Then they'll say, hey, your windows, by the way, are, but I'm sure if I go outside of San Francisco and I go up north where, the sheriffs out there are a little more, you know what I'm talking about. I'm pretty sure they'll pull me over and they'll be like, hey, your windows are tinted. And it's, to a degree. Yeah. So it's like, why didn't you just tint your windows? But yeah, so it's like this guy was comfortable with it and he loved it. And I'm like, I'm not ready for that.
Is there been an accident? No.
He's never been in an accident. The thing was with him was he was getting pulled over because he was he was using the autonomous portion while he was in the back seat. It was like, it's literally like reclining.
So had he just been sitting in the driver's seat, but using the autonomous, he wouldn't have any problems, really.
Because we would all just thought he was just
we would just assume he's driving the vehicle. Yeah, sitting in the back seat would mess with people.
Yeah.
The police see that, they're going to guess, hey,
yeah, what the
hell?
Yeah.
That's absolutely outrageous.
Let me ask you this. Are you ready for an autonomous airplane? Like, if you do a lot of flights, are you ready for an airplane that flies itself?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
And I know that's a horrible answer. So let me clarify. Yes, because they use autopilot to begin with a bunch. We've heard horror stories of pilots falling asleep, whatever, or being under the influence, which is even more alarming. I'm okay with autonomous if there's a default system, but nothing is flawless, no matter what, human or computer operated. But is there a default system that says if this plane has some type of malfunction, can it basically float down and land like a big old balloon and not kill 200, 300 people?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What if, and let's get crazy with this. We breach all subjects, Eric. What if, plane has problem, some type of trajectory system that would literally let it float. It's not going any further. It's not going to get to its destination, but it's not going to go Mach 5 into the earth. Is there some type of system like that? What risk would you have?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
You remember, and they grilled him, and I can't remember his name, but landed the plane in the Hudson.
Yeah, Sully.
Something like Sullivan.
Yeah,
Sullivan.
Yeah.
I don't remember his first name, but Sullivan, and he saved those people.
Yeah.
And he was questioned about his choices and whatever, but the reality of it is, a lot of people didn't die.
Yeah.
Is there some type of, when we hit that point, that you go, all right, it overrides to the point of a default that it basically just.
Yeah.
Check this out. I don't know if you've ever operated a drone.
A small drone. Yeah.
Okay. I've done DJI.
Yeah.
I think it's the Phantom. There are systems on that. Like if you put the toggles down, it'll shut it down and it just
hovers
drops.
down.
Now you don't want it to drop 5,000 feet into a million pieces, but is there something where if it hits that override or whatever, all the engines are on fire, whatever, that it could safely do that in an autonomous setting?
That's a good idea. And that's something where I guarantee you'll see a lot more people flying if, there's a lot of people who's afraid of flying. I'm one of them. I'm not afraid of flying. I just don't like that feeling of what happens if, we crash. I hate that feeling. And it's like on a 14-hour flight and you're thinking about that 10 hours at the time. Whenever you hit that turbulence, it's like, I don't want to think of that. But if they could come up with something and say, hey, you know what? If engines fail or whatever, our plane is going to hover safely to whatever is below it. Whether it's
case.
If it's a water crash, it's a water landing, at least.
And it can stay afloat for how long or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever it could do, because they're talking about electric planes.
Yeah.
They're talking about having the power to do that, and that their power is there and is being fined and refined and honed and what have you. Is there a way in a totally autonomous system for it to, if it default, the biggest issue would be it literally just doesn't go forward. It just descends and done. We got to start over.
Oh man, I'm all over that.
That I do in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I'm all over that. I like
you miss the connecting city. That's one thing. You're not dead.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try that. Yeah. So, it's when you think of all the different things, my sister and I were talking about this past week, how history repeats itself, and our parents, when I was your age, we didn't have this, and we didn't have that. And there are jokes of, we walked to school both ways with no shoes, uphill in a snowstorm.
Snowy,
I remember a comedian once saying, my parents were like, we didn't have air. We just held our breaths. We didn't have, we ate dirt and all this. And it's like, okay, that's a little ridiculous. But you think about all of the things that are today with technology and with accessibility and with what we can do.
I
think they'd be able to, and I say all that only to say, you'd think they'd come up with a system that would prevent destruction. That whatever we're doing in that system has to default to, okay, I didn't get to where I wanted to go, or I didn't get this ultimate result, but nobody died.
That's the big thing.
Exactly. Can we do that?
Yeah.
That's what I would want in anything, autonomous, electrical, all that.
Yeah, with these vehicles that we have right now, the vehicles that we talked about, Tesla being the top end right now, because Elon Musk he wants to make this foolproof. He wants everyone to have a Tesla by the end of his lifetime. I like the Tesla concept. I do. I love the Tesla concept. I hate the fact that I gotta charge the car. And this is me just speaking. This is my opinion. When I sat down with a Tesla representative and I asked them, I told them I drive to LA a lot. And when I stop over for gas, I'm looking at 5 minutes, 6 minutes tops from when I exit the freeway, get my gas station or go to the gas station, use the bathroom. I'm back on the freeway within 10 minutes. How long will it take me to charge from here to LA? And he said, well, of course, it's all about the battery. So if you get the high-end battery, then you're looking at a stop one time and you're looking at a 20, 30-minute charge. I was like, 20, 30 minutes? I love the electric part of it. I love that I don't have to spend gas. But if I'm taking a trip like this, and like you just took this trip, you were like, we got to go. It's a time limit. I don't think I can sit 20, 30 minutes to wait for my car to charge up. Yeah.
Well, and so someday, soon, hopefully sooner than later, and I keep referring to this stupid device called a cell phone.
Yeah.
This has more capabilities by a landslide over the first computers.
Yeah.
Look where we are.
Yeah.
Look what you can do. So I would assume and hope that the same principles will work for electricity, for electric vehicles, where you're not sitting there. Oh, it takes 90 minutes to fully charge this thing.
Yeah.
Is there a different way to do that? And the other thing that was interesting to me, and I know we've been all over the place in this conversation today, which I love doing because it's just proof positive that I should probably be committed, is the fact that they're working on a centripetal force thing, where as the vehicle is moving, the electrical vehicle is moving, working on kind of a gyroscope technology.
Charging the car.
There's some type of rotary that's charging the vehicle as you go.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Based on pure energy, based on movement. Did you see, and I don't know what you call it. There were two things I wanted to address as you were talking about Tesla. Let's hit Tesla really quickly, and before we get off the show today, and then one other thing. He had been speaking. There was of Elon Musk and Leonardo DiCaprio, who's really big into like renewable energy and climate, control and what have you, where he was talking about these power stations that could run towns, cities, whatever. And Elon Musk says something I'm paraphrasing, so bear with me. So Elon Musk says something to the effect of, it would take 100 of these stations, because he was doing a tour with Leonardo DiCaprio. DiCaprio was taking a tour with Musk. And he goes, 100 stations to run the U.S.? He goes, no, the entire world.
Wow. 100.
And DiCaprio is like, just 100 of these?
Wow.
He goes, yeah, we could run the entire world with 100 of these. So it's accessible. It's there.
It's there.
It can be done. I want to go to one other thing that's been blowing my mind. And so this idea of perpetual motion.
Yeah.
We're talking about centripetal force. And there's no such thing as perpetual motion. You know, the things where the balls are on the end and it bounce, and eventually come to an end. Have you seen this little, it looks very primitive. It looks like something they would have designed in the early 1900s. It's two-tiered. It's made with wood and some wire. And it's a little marble that spins around the top, then falls into a hole, down a little slide, and then shoots back.
And does it all over again. Wow.
And it never stops.
Wow.
So they've defeated what that theory is of perpetual motion, that it should eventually come to a stop.
But it hasn't.
But it only comes to a stop if it's interfered with.
Wow. Okay.
So it keeps going, which is totally against science.
Yeah.
That it should eventually stop, but it never stops.
Wow.
So if we're breaking those boundaries, then we can figure out stuff.
Yeah.
If we can, and not to sound like the 90s, if we can land somebody on the moon, but I mean, seriously.
It's the truth. Yeah.
The only boundaries we have are ourselves.
Yeah. Something that also would be good is solar energy while you're driving. Like if you can plug something into the electric charging port and have a solar panel.
So that's your hybrid.
Yeah.
Battery and solar.
Yeah.
Then we've got something even crazy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where you could be charging your battery
while you're driving
with the solar.
Because
imagine a car of solar panels.
I'm sure you drove during the sunlight. And when I drive to LA, I usually drive at dusk or at dawn. And by the time the sun hits, there's my.
The comedian Louis Black?
Yeah.
I like him. Some people, he take him or leave, whatever. I love him. But he talked about that. He goes, this was years ago. He was performing at the Warner Theater in DC. And he goes, we don't have a solar energy plan.
Yeah, we don't.
I mean, it's 2000 and something. We don't have, and he goes, and it's because the sun goes away and it doesn't tell us where it's going. And he's making this joke about the reality. But you're right. I mean, during the light hours, if you were driving, you could be absorbing and sucking up solar energy, and then your battery would work when you need it. Yeah.
I mean, like you said, I'm sure it's out there. I'm sure someone's thought about that, but right now it's the money. Yeah. And if Elon Musk does come up with a concept like that, it's going to cost, the $70,000 vehicle that already costs $70,000. Hey, for an extra $125,000, you can get the solar panel. So
we should have programs to offset those expenses.
We should.
We should have programs that are helping those get access to that. Yeah. Because what it's doing is down the road, it's saving this planet.
Yeah, it is.
Then you've got even more time to make money. If you're so worried about making money, let's live long enough to make money.
Like I told you earlier in the show, the governor here is trying to get us to be electric within 10 years. And I have a hard time right now just trying to get a regular vehicle that's, within the $30,000 to $40,000 range. Now you want me to get a $70,000, $100,000 vehicle? I said, I'm all for it if you find a way to help us.
If there's some type of subsidy.
Okay, if you're going to pay half of my down payment and then in return give me like a $200 a month something, just saying, oh, you're going electric. Here you go. This is what we're going to do for you. to me,
it has to have some type of subsidy
Yeah.
to make it accessible. And then when it becomes where it's not so ridiculous, then of course, then you're on your own. You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of a down payment plan.
Yeah.
Where you're going, okay, we're going to be able to get these vehicles on, you know, road. We obviously cannot shut transportation down all to the point of we're all walking again.
Yeah.
That's never going to work. We've got to get rid of fossil fuels sooner than later because this planet's getting hotter and hotter.
Yeah.
We've got to be real.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a good topic we can talk about another day.
We have to conquer that another time.
That fossil
but you know
fuel
what?
thing can last for hours.
And more, but I'm thinking about that, you know, and people go, well, there's this diary of a little person, but it's what I'm facing, what you're facing, what we all face in those challenges.
Yeah.
You know, I get into a car and I'm thinking, and really quickly, we'll wrap with this, you know, as a little person, I get into a vehicle with my daughter who's also little, and I'm going, all right, we have to get from Atlanta to the east central part of Iowa. There are obstacles I'm facing and challenging, and gas pumps you can't reach and whatever, and you got to find the right location. Drive-throughs are always a bear. I hate drive-through restaurants. I don't hate the restaurants, but I hate the drive-through process because I'm reaching halfway out of the damn car to make sure I don't drop something. Yeah. They're reaching through the window as far as they can go. I have literally stood on my seat once to get the stuff out of the drive-through, butt in the air and the whole 9 yards. I mean, life is a process, and when you're 4 feet and 3 inches, it's a crazy process.
But you know, this is the good thing. This is what I love that you're doing, and you're sharing your. You know, my coworker who listens to our podcast religiously says what I love about you too is you guys can talk about the seriousness of dwarfism, and you're making, you know, the regular height people realize, you know, there's more into it than just being a dwarf, right? There's this obstacles like you just mentioned. And she's like, I love that. I love that you're putting, you know, the face behind what's really happening. Mm-hmm. And she goes, and I love how you guys can just veer off and talk about whatever. And she loved your farm story so much when we were talking about the things that we do for summer and like how you would just do that. So she wanted to know, and I'm not going to, she doesn't want me to use her name, but she wants to know, is that house still around? Your mom's house?
My home?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
the homestead is still there. It's that house itself was built in late 1979 is still there. And you know what? We've talked about this a little bit. Can we open with this on the next show?
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you about where that farmstead was. We talked about tornadoes.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you how that house came to, or I'll revisit how that house came to fruition, which will be a good springboard where we could go from.
Do you guys still own the property?
Next show. What's that?
Do you guys still own the property?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Yes.
We'll talk about that too. We need to address all of that.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that house. We'll talk about what was there before that house. And then we'll talk about, you know, the current state of farming and what goes on there. That's totally different than what it was 30 or 40 years ago.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. And remind me to talk about this. I'll make notes. My sister and I were talking about what things used to be on that farmstead when we were kids that are no longer there.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. We can walk through that. But anyway, yeah. All right. This was awesome.
This was fun. No, yeah, this is fun. You know, we kept on the whole car concept, the driving concept, which is cool. We didn't really veer off it too much, but you know, it all stayed on the same concept. Aaron, happy Father's Day. Happy
Father's Day to you too tomorrow.
And
actually, I would like to go one step further. Okay. Yes. And I do this for everybody who deserves to be acknowledged. Tomorrow is also Juneteenth.
Yes.
And we are going to stand beside our loved ones, our friends of color. We're going to say, I am, and I know you will. Thank you for the fight. Thank you for pushing forward. Yes. Thank you for facing ridiculous odds against such ridiculous things. I salute you, and I will always love and cherish every different shape and size and color. And yes, tomorrow's Father's Day. It's hard to fathom. I have a 21 and 15-year-old.
Wow. Yeah, it is.
And you have 2 boys?
I have an 18 and a 17-year-old. So.
Holy Christmas trees.
I'm right there.
Holy Christmas trees. I have 2 girls. You have 2 boys.
I'm right there.
Time flies.
Yeah.
Time flies. Yeah. But happy Father's Day, sir.
Happy Father's Day. Stay safe in Iowa. And if I don't talk to you on your way back, safe driving on the way home.
Awesome.
Definitely stop by your grandpa's town and get some ribs.
Yeah, I went. That barbecue is so ridiculous. God, that barbecue is so good. It's a little old cafeteria, and it's just perfect.
Oh my God, yeah. Geez.
Have a great week, everyone.
Thanks for listening. You can follow us on YouTube. Listen to us on all the podcast platforms. But until next week, we are the Diary of the Little Man's Podcast.
Take care.
See ya. You've been listening to the Diary of the Little Man's Podcast.